Are you trying to get things done and you seems like everybody's against you? You're doing what is right by the environment, you're doing what is right by conservation and ecology, and it just seems around every corner, the homeowners association, the city council, everybody is against you in what you're doing. I want to offer some notes of encouragement about the enemy within and the enemy without. I want to share with you a little bit more about overcoming that procrastination to actually do something, but to be mindful about what others might believe, but not worry about what they think. So I was talking to my son a little while ago. By the way, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I was talking to my son a little while ago about doing the right thing. You must do the right thing no matter what. Now, in Prosperity Homestead, we talk about doing the right thing for the environment, working with nature, leveraging natural cycles. So for example, if you've had a large earth disturbance, you're going to use cover crops and erosion management mixes, which usually include grasses with very long root systems, and you're going to allow that to grow out. Sometimes that grass will grow as tall as you are, so that you can establish a deep, firm root system to avoid surface erosion. That plant mix is going to have a lot of different kinds of grass, and actually under all that tall grass will be almost like a lawn, so kind of a Kentucky bluegrass or something like that. To an outsider who doesn't understand how it works, they freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, it's like weeds. It's like, okay, so clover and tall grass and a blend of different grasses is not weeds, it's grass and clover. It may look like weeds to the uninformed, because the majority of people don't understand what environmental looks like. They don't understand what so if there's a highway project, they're not really paying attention to how the highway project grassed it out, and then later come back and maybe about a year later, came back and mowed it really down, and then started establishing whether it's wildflowers or they're establishing a certain type of grass profile with a density of grass that allows the soil to hold itself together so they don't have erosion problems. And these are in the Army Corps of Engineers has a manual. There's some highway services manuals for different states. This is not secret stuff. There's certain ways that you do earthworks, and it's Department of Transportation. It's Forestry Service Management. Now again, there's that enemy without, that's somebody who's conspiring because they don't like how your lawn looks. They don't like how your grass looks. They don't like that you have these weird plants next to your house. Now you know they're vegetables, and those tomatoes are growing like crazy and they're as tall as you are, but the neighbor's freaking out because they think they're weeds. They don't know what a tomato looks like when it grows. They know what a tomato looks like in the store, but they don't know what it looks like when it's actually grown. Corn is another thing too. People freak out about corn. I'm like, that's corn. They're like, it looks like a weed to me. I'm like, no, that's corn. Where's the corn cobs? I'm like, well, it's still growing. Well, what's all that sticky stuff out the top? So again, there's an enemy without, people who may literally set up a court situation and conspire to maybe condemn your house, maybe conspire to have legal action against you without even telling you what's going on. And believe me, I know this stuff happens because I've letters from other people and I've experienced it myself. But ultimately, there's also the enemy within. The enemy within is, why don't they understand? How can they be so stupid? Why are they always coming after me? Why are they frustrated? See, they live in a different world than you. You're trying to do better by your family. You're trying to improve your health and food security. You're trying to build for yourself a holistic environment where you can relax and have peace, and you can sit. I was earlier today sitting out in an area that looks overgrown to a lot of people, and I don't know if you've seen that video, but it should be in the playlist for Prosperity Homestead. But I was watching butterflies fly around and hummingbirds and little finches and bluebirds and some pigeons, and it was like being at a nature preserve, but it was actually in a garden. And so that Garden of Eden, you know, if you go into the Bible and they talk about the Garden of Eden, most modern people, if they were dropped in the Garden of Eden, would complain that it's overgrown, that there's all these plants everywhere, that they have to shimmy through the areas. They could be in the Garden of Eden. God puts this on the land for them, and they would complain about it because that's what they are. They're complainers. You can't expect complainers to not complain because by definition, they're complainers. Now, there's also lazy people that say, well, I don't want to do anything different. I want to do what everybody else is doing, so they apply the pesticides, the herbicides, they apply the chemicals everybody else is doing, and then they protest and say, we need to improve the environment. Yes, those farmers are putting too much nitrogen on their fertilizer. This is going on right now, by the way. I don't know if you know about this, but some governments are saying the farmers are putting up too much fertilizer, and that fertilizer is evaporating in the atmosphere and causing too much nitrogen in the atmosphere. Now, you may not know this, but I'm going to share some wisdom with you. The atmosphere that we breathe, breathable air, is 70% nitrogen. And there are plants that'll take that nitrogen out of the air and put it into the soil. And farmers actually have to pay for every pound, every ounce, every little tiny milligram of their nitrogen fertilizer. So farmers are going to put as little fertilizer as possible on the land. In fact, there's computer systems, there's ways of mapping it, soil tests, so that they put the minimal amount. But there's a backlash with government saying that they're putting too much. Now, wait a second. Prices are up. Farmers are investigating nitrogen-fixing plants and trees. They're investigating no-till methods. So some commercial farms even have methods of running cattle that's carbon neutral. But again, there's that enemy without. Those people who are complaining, those people who are trying to shut things down. But the enemy within, that anger, that frustration with those individuals. I am encouraging you to have mercy on those people, to pray for them, to have mercy on them that they are not understanding how the world around them functions. They don't understand the natural ecological systems, the erosion management that I talked about, large soil disturbance, earthworks project. You got to put cover crops on it. If you don't, it'll just dissolve. It's just dirt, and the rain comes down on it, especially in our area with 40-some inches of rain. A lot of these things have time cycles, so you may have to have something in cover crop for a year before you could even start gardening in it. But there might be some plants, maybe you're using seed balls. So let's say you got a garden space, let it overgrow. Mulch it before everything goes to seed, so you can mow it or you can mulch it before it goes to seed. And then start trying seed balls. Start trying to put in plant starts in areas. And that's what we talk about with the grass-fed garden. If someone comes to you and says, hey, look, this looks nasty. These little shrubs and stuff, yeah, they flower, but they only flower for a couple days, and then they got thorns all over them, and they're nasty. And I say, what are you talking about? And they point to this bush, and I say, that's a blackberry. And they're like, no, I don't see any blackberries. I was like, well, it's not blackberry season. Have mercy on them. You can try to educate them, but they don't want to be educated. They want to go to the grocery store and get their little blackberries and get them out of season. They don't understand the seasonal elements a lot of times. So again, don't fight these people. Don't be mad at them. Don't be angry with them. Just understand that they're going to do things that are irrational. They're going to do things that are behind your back. Because as long as you're not doing anything wrong, if you're doing the right thing and you're following the rules, they really don't have any recourse. So they might not like what you're doing, but if you're not breaking any rules, then they just get frustrated. Okay, but again, let it be their frustration. I saw a quote earlier, and I forgot who it was by, but worrying about someone else's emotions is like paying a debt that you don't owe. Okay, think about that. It's their emotions. Let them own it. Okay, if they interact with you, be polite, be friendly. But I ask for a list. I say, look, I understand you have a number of complaints. Can you do me a favor and just provide a list of your complaints so that I can, as I solve them, can check them off? I'm not making any promises that we'll be able to resolve the issues in a timely manner, because there's a lot that has to go into this. But ultimately, if you can share with me in writing your concerns, then I can do something about it. But if they don't, then, what are you going to do? Other than maintain the course. So again, in some of my videos, people are confused about the overgrown garden spaces, and they're, putting the trails in the woods at this particular site. People were confused. Why are you putting trails in the woods? Well, first off, the woods are very thick. It's difficult to get through. And I have a long-term design plan. So there's a written plan. Always have a written plan. A lot of times people will come to you and they'll be frustrated with what you're doing. And you just take out that plan in a binder. And you say, well, you know what? I am so glad you asked, because this is one of my passions. Can I show you the plan? And you start flipping pages, and you got the diagrams, and you got your plant lists. And oh, by the way, you like wildflowers? Come back this spring, there'll be wildflowers everywhere. See, I'm kind of friends with the garden club people and some naturalists and some biology people, and they come by and they say, Justin, I just saw a rare bird at your property. And I was like, well, which one is it? Because I'm trying to learn different birds. And they're just going on about how there was a storm and it blew up some birds and they found habitat here. Oh, and there's a ground nesting bird over here. And see those finches? We haven't seen those finches in our area for years. I saw somebody else complaining they don't see any hummingbirds anyway. And I look out the window and there's 10 hummingbirds on some honeysuckle. And they were just flying in and flying out. Again, it's that ecological habitat that mirrors natural environments, that is appropriate for the seasonal development and changes that happen. And I don't have to put out bird seed. I don't have to put out the sugar water for the hummingbirds. The hummingbirds prefer the natural environment, so they come to my place. The finches, the blue jays, the Baltimore Orioles. I did a survey of the species at this particular property that I'm having some challenges with the city on. And I know they're watching, and that's why I'm doing this video for you guys, because you could just send me a letter. I'm trying to get a landscaper to clean stuff up. But ultimately, there's 25 different types of birds at the property. We have a big family of deer. There's a couple neighbors that like to watch the deer. There's baby does, the does and the different things down in the bottom half of the property. It's like a wildlife park. Well, it's more like an English natural garden is what I'm going towards. But again, I'll be more than happy to clean it up if people are confused, because there is that balance. So these enemies without, they sometimes have more time on their hands and their own little, they're scheming. That's their thing. So, but you can't make it your thing, okay? Because what we're doing is important work. Having food security for you and your family. Having a natural environment did you know that a walk in nature, okay? Not some nature trail that's perfectly manicured and everything, but actually walking in nature and discovering new things. Seeing a bird you've never seen before. Noticing pigeons in a clearing in a wooded area where pigeons weren't usually before. Seeing that mama deer and that baby deer. These things lower your anxiety. They increase the serotonin and the connections in the brain because it's novel new information. That exercise of walking in that fresh air improves your health. When you have a garden that has good quality soil, that soil biome actually climbs up the plant. And when you eat these plants, even after washing them, they have enzymes and microbes that improve your gut flora, which improves your ability for your brain to transfer information around. So it is possible, and this is just a theory, that there are people who are eating junk food, or they're eating what they believe to be good food, but a lot of the food from the market has low nutritional value because it travels so far, the food miles, that it is possible that they're deficient in the vitamins and minerals that are necessary to have a stable attitude, to have clear and crisp thinking, and to have regulated emotions. Now, it's just a theory. I am not a scientist, but what I understand from reading books, from practical application, and from the new science that's coming out, actual scientific papers that I will read, that the gut biome is really improving your ability to think. That walk in nature, that novel experience is improving the connections in your brain. The ability to go out. I did this today, and again, there is another video about it. There's actually an audio podcast too. I was working. It was hot. It was 111 degrees outside, according to the meter in my truck. Probably 95 or whatever. But I sat under these trees, honey locust trees. I cleared a little path, a little bit chop and drop. I sat under the honey locust trees, and I just breathed in, and then I breathed out. And then all that challenge, all those enemies, all that frustration just went out into the universe. And I noticed the butterflies. I noticed the honeybees. I noticed the beneficial insects. I noticed the beauty that is there in what seems to be chaos for a lot of people. But I also noticed the peace and the relaxation. And this world around us is living. The trees are alive. The animals are alive. They deserve their space as much as the people do. And if you have land and you start building these ecological systems, now I'm going to encourage you to conform to what some of the expectations are, because if you're in a neighborhood, you're not going to change your expectations. I literally invested in a prototype for a 40-acre park, and I built everything exactly how the original design of the house was. So the house was built in 1960s or something. I went and got the original plans and the original topography for the ground, and I actually built it. I actually restored everything. There was a ditch like 20 feet deep. I filled it in. I think I think like 50 truckloads, 50 tandem dump loads of soil to fill this thing in. It has detention basins on it because that's what's required. I went all the way to do it exactly the way it's supposed to do according to state and federal. So there's a creek in the back, so I have to follow federal water guidelines for waterways, because Obama had a new rule. All the waterways have to be treated well. And then there's state guidelines for earthwork activities, and the work was done by a forester, so the forester has different forestry requirements. And then, of course, the earthworks have certain structural requirements, so there's a structural engineer involved. And I have a design plan, I have a big plan, how it all works out. It's done exactly the way it's supposed to be. Now, after this year, I can cut the grass. So the grass is really long, and I was cutting it 4 times a year. Again, I know this plan. It is an enemy within to expect others to know the plan, okay? So people are gonna get upset. People are gonna get frustrated. They're gonna look at it and say, why is this so nasty? We should condemn this property. We should consider this a nuisance. People are complaining. Not my neighbors, because half the neighbors are bird watchers. The other half like to watch the deer, and they've all been involved in the project since day one. But it is possible somebody down the road's complaining. Nobody's ever come out and told me. Now, I've had people come by and take pictures, and one of the people who's taking pictures had a long zoom, and they were actually taking pictures of birds. That's what they said they were taking pictures of. I've had other people want a tour and ask me what's going on, but ultimately, I haven't received a letter that says you're in violation of these specific codes. I have had people say I could be in violation of certain things, and then I needed to talk to the city engineer. And I said, great, have them give me a call and give me a list of what the violations could be, and we'll work it out. But otherwise, here's the professional engineer I talked to. Here's the contracting company that I hired. Here's the plan that was on here. Here's an outline of the phases, because you have to do these projects in phases. And let me know. They never came back, because again, doing the right thing. Now, I do sometimes worry because I don't want to be a nuisance to my neighbors, so I do talk to my neighbors and stuff. And there are times the neighbors are confused about why there's a garden next to the house. Even though most of my neighbors put stuff in my compost pile because they don't have a compost pile of their own, and most of my neighbors get vegetables from me or have gardens of their own, because the community garden plan was originally with a couple neighbors. I could do a better job about not worrying about it because I'm doing the right thing. But I don't intend to upset people, so I'm going to hire somebody to make it look different, because again, I do these videos. I can show you before and after, and then I can show you the ecological difference, and then ultimately, if the bird count comes down, that's evidence that what the I had a bunch of naturalists and a biologist and stuff give me consulting from the local. There's a local nature museum, natural museum, so I consulted with them. They gave me plant lists. So the invasive species that somebody cited me before actually came from a plant list from the city, from the museum, and they're on the city's list. It's just they looked, I guess they didn't know what the plant was. But long story short, this is really about doing the right thing. This is about understanding cycles of nature. I have had people say, yeah, I killed everything in the yard because the wildflowers had turned all brown. A lot of people don't know that wildflowers will eventually turn brown when the seasons change. Have mercy on people, pray for them, understand that they have a different mindset, and some of this could be that they're in a different world. They could have their own concerns and issues. They could have frustrations that have nothing to do with me. It could be possible that they're applying the same rules of logic to everybody, and because my particular project mirrors existing earthworks and other structures that are around the community, as well as how slopes are managed, and I can actually show which property I'm modeling, because there's other people that have done something similar. In fact, my land improvements sparked a number of land improvements all over the community. It probably put $200,000 in money into the economy. I know my project cost me like $50,000, and some of the things the city asked cost me additional money because they shut down the last part of the project. But the key here to understand is that you can't change them. You're not going to fix them. All you can do is what's right, and you can adapt. I'm going to adapt a little bit because I had some medical issues and I was unable to care for some things on the property. Even though the grass stayed mowed in the front of the house and on the side of the house, there are some slopes that have tall grass that would look nicer if it was not as tall. And ultimately, you got to forgive yourself too. If you get upset about somebody who says your yard looks like garbage, even though it's wildflowers and bulb flowers and they're just off season, if you got somebody who's frustrated because you've got bird feeders, there's a guy down the way that was telling me that people were upset because his bird feeders were attracting birds and they would crap on cars and stuff on the way in. That's just what birds do. They crap on cars. But I understand. People don't understand. People are confused. People don't know what you know. People have their own little world. And so, you know, the key is communications. I'm always welcoming people to walk through and check stuff out. And then when you have medical problems and stuff, maybe you're better to communicate that. But ultimately, if nobody tells you there's a problem, then you don't know there's a problem. So that's just the way it is. But I hope this has been helpful because I have seen there was another permaculture channel that talked about a before and after picture that shows like a normal house and then it shows a beautiful permaculture garden. They actually got hundreds and hundreds of people complaining. A lot of folks don't realize that in Oregon and overseas in the UK, Australia, that this is it's a normal thing to have an ecologically sound landscape rather than a lawn. And it's only recent in human history that we actually even bothered with lawns. Usually you had pasture for animals or you had dirt. So anything that's green is better than what was happening in the past. And finally, I want to encourage you to not let sorry about that. I want to encourage you to not let other people's emotions really weigh on you. It's not your burden. It really is not your burden. And if they're willing to reach out and share in writing, because a lot of people will get yelling in your face. I had one guy yell in my face, and he was complaining, and he had pampas grass, and I realized he's just having a bad day, and he was yelling, "When are you going to clean up your yard?" Blah, blah, blah. I said, "Well, it's no taller than your pampas grass, and my yard pretty much looks like your yard from structure." And he's like, "Oh," and he went inside. He's just he apologized later. He said he was having a bad day. Again, this is really about, are you at peace with your environment? How can we improve the environment for both the animals, yourself, for the general habitat? You don't want a mosquito infestation. That's why there's frogs and dragonflies, and we can talk about that in another video. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, and I want to share this word of encouragement. I wanted to inform the individuals who are who announced in the city meeting that they're going to take me to court for the property to go ahead and just send me a letter that outlines your concerns. I am more than happy to address the situation. I've talked to a number of people in the community that are really positive about what I'm doing, and they were concerned because they have neighbors or they have property that has similar, like big wildflower beds and stuff. And then finally, if you have questions about this, I've got a lot of experience with teaching. I got a lot of experience with understanding how other people might see things, and really I'm here to answer your questions, because I really think that there isn't an outside solution for environmental needs. Okay, your environment at your home matters more than anything else. Your environment right outside your doorstep matters more than anything else. The permaculture ethic provides the zones, and if you can get your zone 1 straight, it's going to be easier to do your zone 2. And this is where we all improve. This is where we get the results. This is where we transform food security. Okay, a lot of people are living in food deserts. This is where we transform wildlife habitat so that we have beautiful and abundant wildlife habitat, the positive kind. You don't want mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are pretty bad. And number 3 is to make sure that you have a good, healthy mental state. Do read up on those articles about digestive enzymes and your gut biome and the benefits of organic fruits and vegetables that are actually grown in quality soil. And this stuff's incredible. And then there's a whole cycle to build soil. So again, go back into the list. You can ask questions at www.prosperityhomestead.org, but go back into the playlists and look at how we're building soil. Look at how we're developing digestive enzymes and beneficial enzymes so plants are healthier. Healthy plants don't have bad pests. And then we're also did, I think I did a whole series on the on beneficial insects as well. So again, if you have questions, visit the website, ask in the comments below. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really here to do what is right. I'm not, I study the naturalist stuff. I understand the biology. I read science papers. This is a passion of mine. And if it upsets you, let me know. And I'm a pretty nice person. But ultimately, not doing anything wrong. I'm actually doing what's right for the environment. And I'm doing what's right for the land that I'm habitating so that it has the best property value, so that it has the best ecological sound and stability, and so that it doesn't run water and soil into the waterways or otherwise become a hazard to those around me. See you in the next video. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead.